We are rocking and rolling over here at Remodelers on the Rise. It is an active day. You must be thinking, boy, Kyle, what are you doing? Just going from coaching call to coaching call? Actually, this morning started out, I went and had breakfast with my laptop. Spencer, I have a strategy today where we eat dinner early on Wednesdays because we have Wednesday night activities. My wife directs choir and at church and all that. And then my strategy today was I'm going to eat a big breakfast, skip lunch, and then have the early dinner.
Ooh,
it's a good strategy.
I like that. Although I would still need a lunch. Otherwise,
so far so good. It's 12:14. And then we had a strategic planning meeting. Bailey and I had a 2025 strategic planning meeting this morning. If you are a remodeler listening to this, it is probably, you might, who knows when you're listening to this, but you might be listening to it near the end of the year. You need to go into your calendar, carve out a little half day. Give me 2 hours even at the end of the day. Get a couple of your leaders or even just you and think through what is working, what is not working, and what do we really want to be intentional about improving and changing this upcoming year. And then even more importantly, after you put pen to paper on that, schedule that follow-up time. You're going to check in on that, maybe 45, 60 days later. It can be really, really helpful. And then I had to pick up the dog at the groomers, and I was late to record this podcast with Spencer, but he's a gentleman and he adjusted his schedule. Spencer Powell, CEO of Builder Funnel, welcome to the Remodelers on the Rise show.
Thank you, Kyle. I appreciate the intro. And I'm glad you already got some planning in. Good for you.
It actually feels a little weird.
Yeah, a little early?
Something I'm like, something's amiss here. Oh, wait a minute. I think it's because we're doing things proactively. It feels so weird instead of just in time.
You're incredible. We need to follow your lead.
I mean,
it's not even, I don't know if we can give it away, but it's not even Halloween.
It's getting close, yes. I have a feeling that Builder Funnel probably has some 2025 plans already locked in too.
We have a couple cooking.
And then also, if you're watching the video version of this, you have quite a bit of decor behind you, and I'm curious what all that is.
On this table or this table?
I was more thinking behind you. I see books. We got some family pictures and books, but
marketing plans that we've done. So I like to line them up because it looks sharp.
It does look sharp. So literally, those are each individual one of those is a different marketing blueprint that you've done for your clients.
Yes, and then I ran out of table space, so we had to start some other areas.
This is a good thing. Part of the reason they ran out of table space is because Builder Funnel is on the Inc. 5000 award winners in 2020. Is it 2024?
Yeah, the 24 list for the prior 3 years, I think.
Beautiful, which is amazing. Congratulations. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it is you really submit a lot of your financials, a lot of your details, a lot of your staffing, and it really speaks to growth of a business and health of a business. And I'm very familiar with that list from some previous things that I've done, and it's a very impressive award, and it speaks to you're running a business that, how many employees are you up to now?
32
in-house employees at Builder Funnel, which speaks to they know what they're doing. They've got clients. I've some of my clients, and then just a lot of remodelers and builders that they help with all things search engine optimization, all things marketing plan, all things content creation. So check them out, builderfunnel.com. And commercial.
Yeah.
Isn't that nice for you not even have to give the commercial? I can just give it.
I appreciate that. Yeah. And at the beginning even. So
yes, usually wait till the end. Yeah. The other thing I'll mention is Spencer and I were just kind of catching up. We've been longtime friends and colleagues, and I was asking him and kind of quizzing him as his business has grown, what has his kind of work-life balance been? And I was inspired by kind of what he described of, I really make sure that I design my calendar around my family and life much more than just business. And I would encourage myself, and I would encourage everybody listening to this, to make sure that we're being purposeful. Work and business will expand to the amount of time we give it. And sometimes we need to put some boundaries against it to protect our time and our work-life balance. Anything you'd add to that?
Yeah, I would say two things that I would add to that. One is I think there are seasons of things. At the beginning, I had far fewer skills, far fewer, connections, far fewer resources, leverage. So I think you kind of have to make up for that with hours. And I did put in many, many years of long hours. And I think over the last, handful of years, I've been able to shift that pendulum a little bit. So I will say, like, oh, good for you, Spencer. You've been able to yeah, okay, but I've been doing it 14 years, and probably a good solid decade of that was, putting in a lot of hours. However, I will say, I wish I would have started this process sooner. I probably could have done it several years earlier. And I think putting up the guardrails forces you to prioritize. I think maybe people smarter and more adept than me would just be able to say, wow, I have all of these things and I'm going to work all of these hours and I'm going to prioritize perfectly. I think when I had all the hours, I just used them and they weren't as intentional. Whereas now I said, nope, these are my hours and I'm very intentional with that. So then just it happens almost automatically where you have to prioritize better because stuff just has to fall off the bottom.
You're saying no to more things. You're putting more focus on fewer things. And from a remodeler standpoint, listening to this, when you do set the boundary, it makes you start thinking strategically, maybe about how much revenue and work you take on. It makes you think a little more strategically about the team that you would need around you in order to alleviate yourself a little bit more from the workload. So think strategically, think 2025, and happy planning to you. All of that was not what we're going to talk about during today's podcast, but here's what we're going to talk about is related to the marketing side of things. There's two main topics that I want us to dig into and get your thoughts on, Spencer. And then if we have a little time at the end, maybe a third. The first one is understanding what you can afford to spend on marketing/sales to acquire a customer. Super interesting. Number two, how do we properly track your marketing and then based on results, based on what we're seeing, make decisions around it? And then the bonus would be maybe hitting us with some website best practices, things that you're seeing that are working in our industry with your remodeling clients. So let's kind of go back to number one, understanding what you can afford to spend on marketing to acquire a customer. Talk us through that.
Yeah. Well, I guess to start out, when I shared that bullet with you, what came to mind? What were the first couple of things that were just I think you might go here. I think you might go there.
Well, you shared it on Wednesday, October 16th at 11:11 a.m. What I was really trying to do is I was hoping you sent that email in the evening to say, hey, remember when you said you wrap up, I caught you, but you sent it right in your wheelhouse. Damn it. That would have been epic. Huh?
What time was it at?
11:11 a.m.
Oh, and that's Eastern. So that's
So it was in your work. I was trying to catch you and just kill all things we talked about. When I read that, when I saw that, two things come to mind. One is just this question of how much as a remodeler should I be investing in marketing? It is a question that comes up often. I have an answer to that, but I'm not going to steal the thunder. And then also the last part of how much to acquire a customer, acquire a new paying project, I think is not an overly complicated metric, but what gets measured gets improved. And if we're paying attention to how much did you spend this year to acquire each of your clients, it makes us think about what we're investing and where we're investing our dollars a lot more. So that's what came to mind.
Yeah, cool. So, so what I think about with this is two things. One is just allocation of marketing and sales towards revenue. And typically people think about it as a percentage, right? Hey, you should be spending 3% on marketing, 3% of revenue, 5% of revenue. Some people are like, no, it should be less than 1%. Otherwise you're not doing a good job because you're not getting enough word of mouth referral. Everyone has a different take on this. And we use some of those general benchmarks too. Hey, aiming for 2 to 5%, it probably puts you in that range of maintaining to maybe growing if you're effective with that. But I think it's flawed. I think there's some issues with just looking at that. I'm a big context person, and I'm also a big you have to take these things and then apply them to your own company and your own setup. So maybe we'll start with just like a sample scenario, and then we can kind of dig into this a little bit more.
Okay.
I know we're doing podcasts. There's gonna be a lot of numbers, so we'll try to like make it simple. But let's just say you're a $3 million remodeler. You're paying yourself a salary and you're break even. You do $100,000 projects. You got a 35% gross margin.
Whoa, whoa! You said you were going to bring up some numbers, but geez.
Here we go. Yeah, should we slow down?
No, you're good.
Sorry. Okay. Average project size, 100 grand. Gross margin, 35%.
Okay.
So 35K per project is your gross margin. Now, this is where the context matters, but we're going to keep going on this example. Would you spend $10,000 to acquire one customer with a gross margin of 35K? And especially, would you do that every single month? Now I'm scaring you because you're like, that's $120,000 a year, Spencer, $10,000 times 12 months. But if it got you another 35K times 12, I don't have my calculator in front of me, but that's a lot more. But basically each project nets you out another
that comes out to 420.
Yeah, so it nets you out another 25,000 roughly per customer. And if you were break even before, you just moved way ahead, right? Now, granted, during that growth that we just talked about, you may have needed to add another overhead position to your team to handle that growth. But most likely you have capacity within your existing structure, and it's not fully maximized for the size business you are. And so every additional dollar you spend in sales and marketing, you want to look at that in relation to your average gross margin of the projects it's bringing in, and then pick whatever number you're comfortable with. Are you comfortable with a 3-to-1 ratio there? So most people will probably go like, no way, like the 5-to-1, 10-to-1. But like, are you kidding me? If you put $10,000 in and you get $25,000 back within a year, like you can't do that in the stock market. That's almost triple your money. So I'm going to pause there and see if that triggers any thoughts from your end.
Those were some good metrics. I started jotting some down on a spreadsheet here. I think one of the risks in that is what you just described there. Let's say that my $10,000 investment each month brings in one new $100,000 project. So that adds another $1.2 million to my revenue. This is cool. It is, each of those projects are at a 35% gross profit margin. So that's cool. That's bringing me, that's coming up to $420,000 of more gross profit. So now if everything else was the same at $3 million, my overhead expenses, et cetera, I would be kicking out a $420,000. I'd be kicking out an additional $420,000 in gross profit minus my $120,000 investment. So those numbers would work out well. A couple interesting things: thinking through your average job size, super interesting. Thinking through what you're averaging for your gross profit margin, super interesting. The risk in what you described is, what if I wasn't able to naturally create that $3 million of revenue? And crap, I only sold $2 million of revenue plus this additional 1.2, and my revenue is up a little, but my spend is up 120. So there's a little bit of a risk there, but I think for a lot of remodelers listening, also there is some solid, hopefully, net profit dollars already there. And one of the big questions is, do we want to kind of take that as owner draw? Do we want to take that net profit and just build up our company savings a little bit? Do we need to invest it somewhere else? Do I invest it in marketing and advertising? So those are a few thoughts that come to my mind.
Yeah, and that's where context matters, right? Like if you have been plateauing at 3 million for 4 years, like what is the probability that you'll do 3 million for the next 4 years if you just kind of keep doing what you're doing? Probably decent, right? So then that risk maybe is adjusted down, because you go, yeah, this is what we do. We get word of mouth and referral, and we do our little bit of signs, and we do our little league stuff, and we
got some strategic partners, maybe some architects or designers that are referring us.
So we spend 20 grand a year on marketing or whatever, and it's basically nothing. And we do 3 million. And so I think, like, hopefully what this conversation is starting to do is just stretch your mind a little bit in terms of what marketing and sales can do for your business. And especially if you're coming from a place where you haven't done a lot of it. You've done it just a little. I got a website, do a little social, a couple of trucks and signs, but that's kind of it. You're sitting on kind of this base. And if you go, wow, now I can pour into this base, you have more room than you think, probably. Now, I'm not saying like run out and just start spending 10 grand a month if you have been spending like 1,000 a month, because the next part of it is which channels bring you customers. And if you don't have good data on which channels bring you customers and the size customers that you want, then you're not going to springboard right to spending 10 grand a month. You're going to need to get some tracking in place and look at historical data. And that's how you start actually making these decisions.
Yeah. So we'll talk. Go ahead, please.
But I guess the point being is once you have that data, when you pour that 10K a month in every month, you have some confidence behind it. It doesn't feel as scary because you've seen some proof behind you. And then you're actually going to be more worried about, how do I do the work? So you're going to be building the team.
The other thing that comes to my mind as we go through those numbers is, myself and every other business coach that has ever been in the remodeling industry have used the words, know your numbers. And one thing that really comes to mind here is I think there's remodelers that are making $6,000 a month investments in a marketing campaign or in search engine optimization plus content creation. And they really don't have a handle on, can I afford this? Should I do this? Because we haven't been tracking it. And they're like, well, let me just push the easy button and throw money at it and we'll see what comes back. You're saying, hey, when you start to move into this, especially if you're taking a serious look at making some major investments into it, make sure you've got your eyes open, make sure you understand your numbers. That aspect is important. As you look at your guys' clients that you've helped with, we threw out, hey, this is a sold project, kind of a $10,000 investment. We got this one sold project. Interesting. What have you kind of seen in kind of the design build side of things? What have you seen as far as some of the averages of, there's a difference between cost per lead, and then there's also cost per sale, right? The cost per sale is going to be higher, but that's a sold project. And then the cost per lead. And then we also have to say, let's say cost per qualified lead. This is in my service area. It's a type of project that I do, and we're going to chat with these folks. That's a qualified lead. What are some of the ranges and numbers that you're seeing for those?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because I think this is a great time to introduce some definitions, right? Lead, marketing qualified lead, sales qualified lead. You can get leads for 10, 15 bucks on Meta. You run your ads, you get somebody to download a cost guide. Great. And like, that might be great, or it might be bad, depending on the rest of the funnel, right? Like, okay, so I spent 10 bucks a lead and I got 20 leads in the door, but I didn't talk to anyone. Okay, then maybe that's a miss, right? And so where you're going is, how do we get to the final thing, which is a customer? And so we look at a lead is somebody that you have a name and an email, or a name and a phone number, but basically you have contact information, right? So they're usually on your email list, or they're a past customer, past prospect. You have a way to contact them. Marketing qualified lead would be somebody that reached out and said, let's talk. So common would be contact us form, schedule a consultation form. They called into the business, they emailed in directly, they walked in, but they basically said, hey, I'm interested. That's a marketing qualified lead. Marketing has done their job. They served up an opportunity to talk. Sales needs to get on the phone and pre-qualify. And just like you said, right area, right budget, right project. That's what we're trying to qualify for on the phone call. When sales says, yeah, wow, this is right in our neighborhood. Yep, it's 100,000. Great, that checks the box, and it's a kitchen. Cool, we do kitchens. Sales said, yes, this is a SQL, sales qualified lead. We sign off on it. Even if they fail to book the meeting in person, it's still a sales qualified lead because it met the criteria. So marketing is trying to pour in lots of leads, get people to reach out, and then they want a lot of them to get the sign off from sales, right? And that's the quality lead is what you first talked about. So Yeah, I mean, if you're selling $500,000 and up, design, build, remodel, addition, whole home projects, like your cost per lead might be 50, 100, $150 depending on the channel. Like Google Ads, you might be driving those for 150. And then your cost per like sales qualified lead might be high hundreds or low thousands. And then it might cost you 10 grand, 15 grand. But again, if you're doing $500,000 at what's 30% gross margin on that 150, like, are you not going to spend 10 grand to get a 15x return on that? So yeah, did that answer your question?
Yes, it absolutely did. Kind of given in that, I think it's helpful to one, I hope some people listening to this think, you know what, maybe we should start tracking, whether it's, marketing, however you define it. He just gave you kind of, okay, lead, and then we got marketing qualified lead, sales qualified lead. For a lot of you, you might maybe just have two of those that you start tracking. But if you start tracking it and then you realize, you know what, I'm not going to generate a sales qualified lead from cold traffic or from ads or from maybe even pay-per-click or from some of the website stuff, for $25 a sales qualified lead. I'm going to invest some real dollars into this, but because I know my numbers and because I track the results and I track how many we move from a sales qualified lead to a design development agreement, I know that when I put in X amount into the funnel, that by the time it comes out, it's going to generate some good work for me. I think the other thing to keep in mind is that your repeat work, your referral work, when you actually think about that, you could probably say we generated 20 sales qualified leads from repeat work and referrals from our previous clients. We converted 12 of those 20, and I spent $3,000 this year on sending out some $100 gift cards and some thank yous. Holy cow, right? 12 new projects that in my average job size, $1.2 million that produced $400,000, $500,000 of gross profit, and I spent $3,000. As a remodeler, there are your repeat work, your referral work, your strategic partner work, architects, designers. Your cost per sales qualified lead is going to be amazing. Now, on the content creation, on the pay-per-click, on the ad side, it might be $1,000 per sales qualified lead, but that's okay because that is true brand new work that you're bringing in. And by the time you blend everything together, you're probably going to be spending $300 per sales qualified lead, something like that. So really think through how we start tracking it, and do track the other aspects of things. We generated 3 sales qualified leads, and they literally just said it's because they saw our yard signs and our trucks. Well, you spent $2,000 this year on that. It's an awesome number.
Yeah.
You're smiling as I'm going through that.
So I'll put another spin on that example too, with the referrals and repeat business and word of mouth. Let's just take repeat business. Let's say every year you do 10 projects, and then the next year you do 10, but 2 of them were repeat from the past. You might, just using simple math, hey, we have basically a 20% repeat business kind of model where it's like, hey, maybe it's not every year they come back to us every 3, every 5, but like somebody from the past comes back and does another project. Then if you look at it, hey, I'm going to spend this 15 grand to acquire that customer, and it was profitable that time. But then if I do that 10 times, 2 of them are going to come back. So it actually, over a longer time horizon, like 5-7 years, it actually drops that original cost to acquire that first customer, because some percentage will come back again. So yeah, again, if you're playing the long game, there's a lot of opportunity because you're basically saying, hey, the first customer, it is going to be more expensive, but then after that, it costs me $50 a year per client to send that little gift to them at Christmas time and send some emails every once in a while. And then I know that every year X% will come back and do another project.
So again, remodeler listening to this, when you evaluate your marketing budget, when you evaluate the marketing tactics that you're using, there are some of your marketing tactics that have incredible ROI. Your yard signs, your potentially just your flat out website. your Google profile, your repeat work, your referral work, your strategic partner work, the ROI on those efforts are tremendous. And then you may spend some big coin comparably on generating some brand new work through some of the online methods. And it's going to cost you a chunk of change to do it. But your ROI on it is already positive right from the first year, let alone what Spencer was mentioning. It's similar in Spencer and I's business. You could apply this in a lot of different businesses. Spencer spent a good amount of money because he does what he says he's going to, or he eats his own food here. There's a phrase, I don't know what it's called.
Eat your own dog food, practice what you preach.
Practice what you preach. Yeah, not the dog food, that's gross. Practice what you preach. You know, you've spent a lot of money over the years on pay-per-click, on content marketing, right? Yet your podcast or just your content and being known, you know, the amount you're spending on that, relatively speaking, is pretty small. You look at my marketing budget and, you know, the last 10 leads I've generated, I haven't spent hardly anything on them, but I have devoted a lot of time. I've helped, I've built a lot of know, like, and trust. I've managed a community. I've managed a podcast. But if I start doing paid ads to bring in new people to know who I am, and I target remodelers, I'm probably going to spend 10 times what I'm spending in these areas. But this is already doing things for me. If I can generate some additional ones each month, I can continue to grow instead of kind of sit here, if that's my goal. Very similar for a remodeler. There's a lot of methods you use. So start tracking your leads, track where they're coming from. Tell us what your cost per lead is, your cost per qualified lead is, because if you're tracking that, you're going to make better decisions on where to invest your dollars.
Yeah, I think it's you're like expanding your base, right? Like if your base is like, hey, we're always about 2 million, and it's like, well, if you want that base to be bigger, like you're going to pour into marketing and sales, get a new wave of new customers that now, if you do a good job, which you have been because you have this base, your base now is bigger on that word of mouth and referral. So yeah, and if you just break down and think about, somebody referred this person to me versus somebody did a Google search and clicked on this ad, the marketing and sales approach is going to be different. And it's probably going to be on a different time horizon, right? Because that person that just clicked, they don't know anything about you. The other person, they had a friend that basically had this little trust, basket, and they just said, here you go. And it got passed along. And so they already did all the hard work for you.
Yeah. As far as, what to spend or percentage goes, Spencer's wise. Well, it depends on the context. It depends on where your leads are coming from. If you're talking to a remodeler who generates a ton from architects and designers and realtors, their marketing budget's piddly and they're perfectly happy. I don't need to spend much. Where I've been falling on this is, hey, before we even talk about how much to spend, it's a minimum of 1%. I see so many remodelers spending 0.5 of 1%. 0.6 of 1%. And and maybe I'm talking to a few of you, and you wear it as a badge of honor. It's not a badge of honor. It's a risky proposition, frankly. Now, I say that. Some of you are doing just fine and dandy. Context. Kyle, we've been in business 40 years. We're at this revenue mark. We're very comfortable with it. We're kicking out a nice net profit. We don't really want to grow. Kyle, I'm spending $12,000 a year on marketing and everything's going swimmingly. I don't need to do much more. Context, fair enough. But for a lot of folks, don't wear it as a badge of honor. If you're doing $2 million of revenue, minimum 1%, that means 20 grand. That means about $1,700 a month. There's a lot of things you can do and try related to that. And then if you're newer in business or if you're looking to grow, you better be at 2%, 2.5%, 3%. Spencer even mentioned 4%. Because that's going to give you some dollars to really invest in some of these areas. What else would you say about that aspect of it?
Yeah, I mean, just hitting on the context component, like if you are trying to maximize your profit, it makes sense that you would maybe trim your marketing and only, just build off of the base and the word of mouth referral. And you say, hey, I just want to keep the structure I'm at and stay full and max profit. But if you're a growing business, then it makes sense that you would spend more and a higher percentage of revenue. You might even look at the growth target that you're trying to hit, right? So if you're 3 trying to go to 5, you might budget off of 5 million, right? So It's all contextual, because you also need to be able to build the back end. And so if you're like, well, I really do want to grow from 3 to 5, and I've got some money to invest into marketing, but you're totally unprepared to make the right hires, or you don't even know your structure for how it will look at 5. Like maybe you want to go from 3 to 4 or 3.75 or whatever it is, invest into marketing, build that back end, and then take that leap. And so I'm just a big context person, because I could give all these blanket numbers, but like half of them won't apply to everyone listening.
It doesn't make for good 10-second reels for our marketing efforts, Spencer.
Yeah, exactly.
You're supposed to say something. I can generate. Hey, and everybody listening to this, if you're seeing ads pop up and people are promising you to get leads for $100, we can fill your calendar all week with this and that. They are most likely not anybody who you should remotely work with. Anyways, that's what I would just like to share.
That was good. That might be a nice little reel.
That's 10 seconds. Well, I'm good with the 15-second sizzle. You're like, well, it depends contextually, which is correct, but it doesn't get the views, man. Anyways,
I'm not about the views.
So if I'm a remodeler, I'm looking to grow, I'm doing $2.5 million of revenue, I want to grow. What are some of the places I am going to be investing my hard-earned dollars, Spencer? Am I creating content? Am I creating videos? Am I doing search engine optimization? Give us your best kind of answer to that question. We got another 5 minutes left here in our lovely recording.
I'll give you the annoying truthful answer, and then I'll give you what you want, Kyle.
Thank you.
Okay. So the annoying truthful answer is, you got to 2.5 million. What has brought you customers in the past? Do more of that. If you have something that's already worked, do more of that. If it was Google Ads, do more Google Ads. If it was SEO, do more SEO. If it was throwing parties, triple your parties. Like it sounds so simple, and it really is. Here's an example. Last year in the spring, so this was 2023, early in the year, Q1, we were spending $2,000 a month on Google Ads. We hadn't really done a lot of Google Ads before. We were just big into content, right? Lots of SEO, lots of content. We're like, hey, we need to learn this channel. Let's get into it. Let's try it. Did that, waited, looked at the data, saw how many customers. We're like, yep, we like this. Great. Go to 5. Went to $5,000 a month. Wait, watch it. Okay. Yep. Okay. It's still doing what we wanted to. Great. We went to 10. We went to 15. Now we're closer to 20. And that's over 18 months. So that was an example of new, but it was really from 2000 on, it was an example of more, because we said, hey, this is a channel that works. And for that more, it's pretty easy. You hit edit, change the daily budget, hit save.
Yep.
Like no time, right? And so anyway, back to your question would be, what have you done in the past that has brought you customers that you liked? Do more of that. Now, for the answer that you really wanted, which is like, what should I do? I like a blend of, you got to have a great website, but then on that website, you're creating content and you're working on your SEO. So that's going to be project spotlight pages that are hyper niche, modern kitchen remodel in the Broadmoor. That's like a high-end area here in Colorado Springs. So if you're like, oh, I want to target that area, like you're showing up really specifically for the areas that you want to. You're also blogging. And then I like a paid component. Google Ads, bottom of the funnel intent, right? Somebody like kitchen remodeling near me, kitchen remodeling services, Colorado Springs. Like you can pick the words that if somebody typed this in, they're probably actively looking. Content and SEO, sometimes you're going to pull in people that are a little bit higher up in the funnel. They're not always that, like, hey, I want to find somebody today. When you marry the two, I think what we've also seen the benefit of, just for context of our paid ads, is like we've just flooded tons more people. But then when they get there, they're like, holy cow, there's this podcast with hundreds of episodes. There's this YouTube channel. There's all these case studies. Like they've been around for 14 years. There's 32, like there's stuff there that we've been doing that kind of supports that. And so when you think about from a marketing perspective, hey, what am I trying to do? I'm trying to attract the right people at the right time. The right time is really tough. You can't control the right time for them doing the project. You can find the right people, pull them into your world. When you pull them into your world, you can email them, back to a blog, back to a project spotlight. You can tell them about the process. You can build that trust. And so you need the content component or you'll never build the trust. But then the ads part, when you pair it, like I love that combination. So I would I would start with a base of content, because if you kind of just drive a whole bunch of people, like the ads you just mentioned, the like 20-year-old kid that's like, we can promise you 30 meetings on your remodel calendar. Like, I bet if you click to that website, there's like one page and it's a scroller, or there's like 3 pages and you're like, what is this, right?
Yeah.
Think about that for your website. If somebody comes, like, they want to see a vast number of projects, they want to see your team, they want to know the process, they want to learn.
Yep. Yep. And also another best practice you like is especially when it's somebody that I'm not interested in calling right now or contacting right now to start this project, but they're obviously searching, they're coming to this to have something to convert them. Maybe it's how much does a kitchen remodel cost in Brighton, Michigan? You have found that to be a good best practice to get them onto an email list that we can then stay in touch with.
Yeah, and that's the best converting one, is cost. Like, people want to know what is it going to cost me to do this project? And if you just figure, hey, I've got this available, hundreds of people can download it. Some of them are just looking around for price. Like, great, they didn't call you and we don't have to talk to them and we save all that time. But the people that do want to know, they're like, oh, okay, that's about what I thought it would be. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're on the list. You've got somebody that you can build that trust with. So you do need to have a way to build that database. And again, I think remodelers are so used to referral leads for so long and word of mouth leads. When you get that lead, it's actually already a sales qualified lead who's ready to buy now. And so you're used to just getting that.
Yeah.
And so then when you go, oh, I'm going to market, and then you start getting these leads and they're like downloading stuff and they're not replying to your emails, and you try and call them and they don't pick up, you're like, they're junk. And you're like, no, they're actually just earlier on. You've just never experienced it yet.
And what if we can kind of have them in our world? Maybe they do like our Facebook page. Maybe they do follow us on Instagram. Maybe they do opt in and we have their email address and we just have a nice little drip campaign. Marketing is about building know, like, and trust. And that's an interesting thing. So many of you listening to this, you equate marketing success to this person reached out, I went on a sales appointment the following week. And what I think the big theme that we're hearing here is we need a little bit longer runway on this. We need to think about when we're truly investing in some of these other avenues that we're not used to think about how much we need to invest in order to get a sales qualified lead. And then also this idea of, holy cow, this is amazing. Look at this one. They downloaded this 2 years ago. We've been sending them a monthly email. Oh man, they follow us on Facebook. Now that I see that name, I've seen some of those likes, or I've never seen likes, but they've seen them. And holy cow, they finally have reached out. This is cool. And to have that as part of your marketing plan and marketing strategy as a remodeler is smart, and it works. So, Spencer, if you wanted people to reach out to you, what would you say, and how would you just sell them like crazy here at the end? Give me your best bro marketing, sales job.
Sure. Can I just give one last parting piece of advice before I do my bro sales pitch?
After you tell them how to contact you, then give me your last parting advice, and that'll be how we end things.
Cool. Builderfunnel.com. That's the best way. It's the easiest way. If you like podcasts, Builder Funnel Radio. If you like YouTube, Builder Funnel TV. Just Google any of those and subscribe. Check us out. If you want to talk, there's meeting links. Easy to get in touch with our sales sirs, as we call them. But you'll talk to Patrick.
Sales sirs?
Sales sirs. Yeah.
It's a tongue twister. I don't like it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, too bad.
Go workshop that. Put that in your 2025 strategy meeting that you guys haven't even had yet. Even though Remodelers on the Rise, we already got ours locked in. Inc. 5000. What?
We're just getting crushed over here.
We're in the Inc. 500 over here.
Top dogs.
And that's funnel, 2 N's, 1 L, folks.
Thank you. Yeah. I would say just check us out and subscribe to the content, right? See if you vibe with it. But my parting advice that I really wanted to get in before the bro sales pitch you asked for, install the tracking. Like, you can't do any of this fun stuff that we just talked about. You can't even run your own numbers if you don't actually have a way to track how your marketing is doing. So get some tracking behind your website that tells you the names and emails and which channel they came from when they fill out a form.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you close a deal, then just go back into that system and go, oh, it was Google Ads. Oh, it was organic search. Oh, it was whatever. Like, if you haven't done that step, make that your before the end of the year, get that going, because then you can do this next year, even if you just let the whole year go by and you collect data. That will be worth it, even if you do nothing else. So there's my one.
I like
thing.
it. And it's nice when we have a marketing lead that is really kind of a purebred, it's like they saw this and they responded to it. At the same time, a lot of your tracking can be clear like that. And then other times it's going to be like, oh, I'm trying to track it, but they mentioned that Mrs. Smith is a neighbor of theirs and they saw our yard sign and they saw us at that event and they found our website. All poor us. It's a little messy. In other words, that's amazing. When we're really clicking on the marketing side, they are mentioning multiple ways. So while tracking it's some of it is very pure, some of it, you might just track, all right, but this was the thing that finally made them reach out. But if it's a little messy because there's multiple ways, I say awesome, because that means we're marketing well. So
yeah, and it does open up a little bit of a can of worms, but at least you get original source, and then what you're kind of talking about is just like what influenced the sale also. Yeah, and those are worth something.
It's good. Spencer, that was fun. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. Unique. I feel like we went down some unique veins there, and hope everybody that's listening to this has a wonderful rest of the day. Be positive. This glass here, some would say it's half empty. Some would say it's half full. And you can choose, for those of you listening to the podcast, it's literally about a little under halfway, but 10% of life is what happens to us, and 90% is how we respond to it. Go about the rest of your day with a positive attitude. It's contagious. All right. See ya.